The DNA result that shattered everything. I didn't know it then, but the email that landed in my inbox at 6:12 a.m. would destroy the version of my life I'd been living for 42 years. At first, it looked harmless. Just another "Your 23andMe results are ready" notification. I'd taken the test as a joke, something my coworkers were doing after lunch one day. I expected to learn that I was 80% something, 20% something else, and maybe have a distant cousin in Ohio. Instead, I learned I didn't share a single genetic marker with the man who raised me. I was sitting at the kitchen table, half asleep, the smell of stale coffee still hovering in the air from the night before. My wife, Rachel, was upstairs getting ready for work. I remember scrolling through the results, eyes blurry, until the words started to make sense. Immediate family match, none. I blinked, refreshed, blinked again. Dad's name wasn't there, not even in the partial match section. My chest tightened, slow and steady, like someone gradually turning a wrench inside my ribs. I clicked the DNA relatives tab again, thinking maybe I'd hit something wrong. But the algorithm didn't change its mind. No father. No paternal relatives. Nothing. Just a list of strangers and a few distant cousins I'd never heard of. "Babe," Rachel called down from upstairs. "You good?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I stared at the screen until the blue-white glow felt like it was burning my eyes. Because here's the thing, my dad had always been that. Solid. Steady. The kind of man who showed up early to every soccer game, who helped me move into my first apartment, who actually cried, the day I got married. And suddenly a website was telling me we weren't biologically connected at all. I stood up too fast and the chair screeched across the floor. The sound echoed through the quiet kitchen. Rachel walked in, her eyeliner half done, holding a mug. "What happened?" she asked. I handed her the phone. She read the screen once. Then again. "Oh my God," she whispered. This can't be right." I wanted it to be wrong. I wanted to blame the test, the lab, the stupid trend of spitting in a tube for entertainment. But the more I looked at the markers, the percentages, the digits and charts, the more certain I became. This wasn't a glitch. This was truth. A truth my mother had apparently buried since 1978. My first instinct was denial. The second was anger. But the third, the one that settled cold and heavy in my stomach, was the question that would haunt me for the rest of the day. Why didn't she tell me? I drove to my parents' house without texting, without calling, without thinking. It was 7:03 a.m. when I pulled into their driveway. The sun wasn't even fully up yet. Their curtains were still closed. I knocked hard enough to scare myself. After a moment, I heard slow footsteps, then the deadbolt turning. Mom opened the door, robe wrapped tight, eyes puffy with sleep. "Sweetheart, is everything okay?" I held up my phone. "I need you to explain this," I said. Her face changed instantly, and not in a way I'd ever seen before. It was like watching a mirror crack. Slow, delicate fractures spreading outward. She glanced at the screen, her breath catching in her throat. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "It doesn't matter," I said. "Is it true?" She pressed her lips together, looked down, looked back up, and then she did the one thing that told me everything before she ever spoke. She closed her eyes, just for 1 second, just long enough to confirm my worst fear. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "Please, just tell me." When she opened her eyes again, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. "I was going to tell you someday," she said softly. "I just never knew when." A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. "When?" I repeated. "When were you planning to tell me I'm not Dad's son? On my deathbed? On yours?" She flinched. "Please don't talk like that. Come inside." I stepped into the house that suddenly felt unfamiliar, wrong, staged. The smell of cinnamon potpourri, usually comforting, turned my stomach. She guided me to the living room, but I didn't sit. "Who is he?" I asked. "Who is my father?" Her hands trembled. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't support her weight anymore. "It was Complicated, she said. Try me. She swallowed hard. His name was Alan. That was the moment my world tilted. Because I'd never heard that name before. Not once in 42 years. Not in stories. Not in arguments. Not in accidental slip-ups. Nothing. Why didn't you tell Dad? I asked. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together. He knew, she said. Everything inside me went still. He knew. Yes, she whispered. He knew from the beginning. I felt the air leave my lungs. Rachel always teased me that I breathed too deeply, too loudly. But right then I couldn't breathe at all. So both of you lied, I said quietly. For my entire life. She closed her eyes again. We did what we thought was best. No, I said, voice shaking. You did what was easiest. She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. And right there, right in the middle of my mother's living room with old family photos staring down at me like ghosts, I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not shatter. Crack. A hairline fracture in the foundation of my life that I knew would only get worse. Halfway between rage and disbelief, I said the words before I could stop myself. What else are you hiding? Mom froze. A beat too long. A breath too sharp. And that was when I felt it, the shift. The realization. The sense that this story wasn't just about a secret from 1978. There was more. Much more. And here's your engagement line naturally placed. If you've ever discovered something that made you question everything you thought you knew about your family, you know this feeling. And if you're feeling it too, I see you. Mom finally looked up, eyes wet, voice barely audible. There are things you don't understand, she said. Things I hoped you would never have to. My heart pounded. Tell me, I whispered. She hesitated, then reached for the small wooden box on the coffee table. I'd seen it all my life. I'd never seen it opened. She lifted the lid. Inside was an envelope. Yellowed, worn, sealed, with my name on it. What is that? I asked. Mom looked at me with the kind of heartbreak that only comes from decades of silence. It's from him, she said. From your biological father. The room tilted. I reached for the envelope. But just as my fingers touched it, Mom grabbed my wrist. Before you open it, she said, voice trembling, you need to know something. She paused. And then, I wasn't the only one keeping a secret. To be continued. I didn't open the envelope right away. Couldn't. Not with Mom staring at me like that. Like she was afraid of what I'd read. Afraid of what it would turn me into. Afraid of something she hadn't said yet. The air in the living room felt heavy, thick, almost humid. The old grandfather clock in the hallway ticked louder than it ever had in my childhood. It was 8:14 a.m., but it felt like time had stopped the moment she said Dad had secrets too. What do you mean he kept things from me? I asked slowly. What kind of secrets? Mom's hands twisted together in her lap. Her robe came loose at the collar, and she didn't even notice. She just kept staring at the envelope like it was radioactive. Your father loved you, she whispered. More than anything. That's the truth. That's always the truth. That's not what I asked. She flinched, but I couldn't soften it. Not now. Not after everything. He made a decision, she said. We both did. But he carried guilt and fear. And there were things he couldn't say out loud. Not even to you. Mom, I said, leaning forward. Tell me what he was afraid of. She finally looked up, and the look in her eyes made my stomach drop. Losing you. My breath caught. He thought I'd stop loving him? He didn't know, she said, voice breaking. He didn't know what you'd do if you found out. He thought you might go looking for the other man. Alan, I said. Her lips tightened. Yes. The name felt foreign in my mouth, like a word from a language I wasn't meant to speak. I looked down at the envelope again. My name, written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Faded black ink. The slight tear on the corner like someone had almost opened it once, then changed their mind. Why does he have this? I asked quietly. Why did he write to me? Mom hesitated, and then she said something I wasn't remotely prepared for. He didn't write it to you at first. I froze. What does that even mean? It was for me, then later, for you. That didn't clarify anything. If anything, it made everything worse. I sank onto the couch, elbows on my knees. Mom, I said, exhaustion flooding my voice. Start from the beginning, please. She took a slow breath, like she was preparing to dive underwater. It was the summer of 1978, she said. Your father and I had been married 1 year. He was working overtime constantly. I was lonely, stupid, young. I made a terrible mistake. She didn't have to spell it out. I already knew. I met Alan at a friend's gathering, she whispered. He was charming in a way your father wasn't. Confident, reckless. But it was brief and it should have ended there. I never wanted it to be more. But I happened, I said. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Yes. She paused, wiping her eyes with shaky fingers. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. But your father, he didn't. He told me he didn't care. He said you were ours, that he would raise you, protect you, love you, and I believed him. I swallowed hard. I could picture Dad saying that. The man who'd bandaged my scraped knees, taught me to drive, stayed up all night helping me study for exams, waited outside every job interview I'd ever gone to. He would have said exactly those words. But Alan didn't disappear, she said. Not immediately. A chill slid down my spine. What does that mean? She looked away. He wanted to be part of your life. First. Until your father confronted him. I straightened. Dad confronted him? Yes. She nodded. And after that, Alan left. Completely. No calls. No letters. No presents. He vanished. My throat tightened. Then what's this? I asked, holding up the envelope. Why is there a letter from him if he disappeared? Mom closed her eyes. He came back. She let those words hang in the air like smoke. When? I demanded. Her voice dropped to a fragile whisper. On your 8th birthday. My entire body went still. 8th birthday. That was the year Dad took me camping for the first time. The year I got my bike. The year Mom cried at my school's spring showcase for no reason. Or at least that's what she told everyone. Why? I asked. Why did he come back? She shook her head, as if trying to dislodge the memory. He wanted to see you. Just once. He said he'd been wrong to walk away. That he'd regretted it every day. That he thought he had a right to know the son he helped create. A sour wave rolled through my stomach. And Dad didn't tell me? He didn't want you confused. He didn't want you hurt. I looked at her sharply. And you agreed with that? Keeping a man from his biological son. She looked devastated. We didn't know what the right thing was. We were trying to protect you. By lying. By loving you, she insisted, voice trembling. I stood up, pacing, palms pressed to my temples. This is insane. So he shows up, says he regrets leaving, insists he deserves to know me. Then what? He hands you a letter. Mom didn't answer. She just stared at the envelope. I grabbed it again, heart racing. I'm opening it. No, wait. Her voice cracked like a breaking branch. Before you do, there's something I need to tell you. Something your father never knew. Something I've hidden for decades. My pulse hammered. Mom, I said. Stop dragging this out. What is it? She rose from the couch slowly, walked to the fireplace, and pulled down a small metal tin hidden behind an old family photo. The lid creaked when she opened it. Inside were 2 items, a photograph and a hospital bracelet. Mom, I whispered. What is this? She handed me the photo first. It was of a newborn baby. But the bracelet, it wasn't mine. It had someone else's last name. And the date on it was 1 day before I was born. My entire body went cold. Mom, I said, voice barely audible. What are you trying to tell me? She took a shaky breath that sounded like it might break her lungs. You weren't the only baby born that night, she whispered. And something happened at the hospital. Something I never told anyone. She looked me in the eyes. Because I'm not sure the baby they handed me was actually you. I didn't feel my legs when they gave out beneath me. I just felt the carpet scrape my palms as I caught myself before hitting the floor. The hospital bracelet dangled from my fingers like a piece of evidence in a trial I never agreed to be part of. The date, the name, the time. 1 day before my birth. And not my last name. My heart pounded so violently I could hear it in my ears. Mom, I said, barely breathing. Say it clearly. Say what you meant. She sank back onto the couch like all the air had been sucked out of her lungs. I don't know if the baby they gave me was you, she whispered. My vision blurred for a moment. A pulse of panic washing over me so strong I thought I might pass out. I clutched the bracelet tighter, the plastic biting into my skin. Mom, what the hell does that mean? How do you not know your own child? She buried her face in her hands. It was chaotic, she said. There was a storm that night. The power went out twice. They were moving babies into the hallway, swapping bassinets, trying to keep everything organized with flashlights. I was groggy. The epidural hadn't fully worn off, and I was so scared. Her voice cracked. And when they brought you to me, you didn't have a bracelet at first. Or maybe you did. I can't remember anymore. My mind spun. So what are you saying? I snapped. That they handed you a random baby and you just said, okay? No, she cried. I didn't think. Your father said you had his nose, his cheeks, that everything was fine. He calmed me down. I believed him. The bracelet slipped from my hand and landed on the floor with a soft plastic tap. Whose name is this? I whispered. Who is this woman? Mom looked away. I don't know. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. She stayed silent. And that silence was the real answer. You do know, I said. Her lips trembled. Her name was Catherine. She was in the bed next to mine. Catherine what? I demanded. She hesitated like the name itself had a blade. Catherine Moore. My chest tightened. I didn't know a Catherine Moore. I didn't know any Moores. No distant relatives. No family friends. No one whose name had ever grazed the edges of my childhood. It was like Mom had been holding this ghost behind her back for decades. I picked up the bracelet again and turned it over. K. Moore. Baby boy. November 14th, 78.
1:03 a.m.
My birthday was November 15th, 78. My birth time, 4:12 a.m. Hours apart. Mom, I whispered, why did you keep this? She wiped a tear from her cheek, smearing her mascara slightly. Because the next morning, Catherine was gone. Gone where? I don't know, she said, voice shaking. She checked out early. Left before breakfast. The nurses said she had a family emergency. But something about it felt wrong. She looked terrified. She kept looking at the babies over and over, like she was counting them. My stomach dropped. Counting them? Yes. And then she left? Mom nodded. And you kept her baby's bracelet? Why? She closed her eyes. Because for one horrible moment, I thought they might have given me the wrong child. And your father told me I was imagining things, that I was overwhelmed, that I needed sleep. He threw the bracelet away. My jaw clenched. But you kept it. Yes. How? I took it out of the trash and hid it. My throat tightened. Why hide it all these years? Her voice broke completely. Because I was afraid of what it would mean. Afraid of what it would do to you, to our family, to everything. A wave of nausea rolled over me. I stood up, pacing the living room, breathing too fast. Mom watched me with the same helpless expression she'd probably worn the night I was born. I know what this looks like, she whispered. I know what you're thinking, but I have always loved you. You are my son, no matter what. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Mom, I don't even know who I am right now. I don't know if Dad is my father. I don't know if Alan is my father. And now you're telling me I might not even be your baby. That's not what I said. It's what you implied. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Mine weren't far behind. Silence wrapped around us like something alive and suffocating. Then she whispered, "Your father knew about Alan. But he never knew about Catherine." My blood ran cold. "And you never told him?" I asked.
No.
Couldn't. It would have destroyed him. "So instead you lived with it alone?" She nodded slowly. "For 42 years," she whispered. A shiver moved through me. 42 years of fear. 42 years of pretending everything made sense. I walked back to the coffee table, reached for the envelope, then stopped. "Did Alan know about this?" I asked. Her face crumpled. "Yes." The room spun. "You told Alan, but not Dad?" "I had to," she cried. "He showed up 8 years later asking questions. He said he'd heard rumors about a baby mix-up at the hospital. He wanted to know if you were really his." My skin prickled with cold sweat. "What did he say?" I whispered. "What did he think?" She shook her head, trembling. "He said he wasn't sure. He said when he looked at you he felt something. But he also felt like something was missing." I nearly choked on my own breath. "So he suspected I wasn't his either?" Her silence was the answer. I sank onto the couch again, numb. Mom leaned forward. "That letter," she whispered, nodding toward the envelope. "It explains his side, his doubts, his regrets, his reasons." I stared at it. The edges yellowed. The ink faded. My name, my possible name, scrawled in handwriting that might belong to my biological father or might not. My pulse thundered in my ears. "I don't want to open it," I said honestly. "I'm not ready." Mom nodded. "I understand." But her eyes said she didn't. Not fully. Not even close. I leaned back, rubbing my face with both hands. "This is too much," I whispered. "I know." "No, you don't. I might not be Dad's. I might not be Alan's. I might not even be yours. You are mine," she said fiercely. "No test will ever change that." A part of me softened at the desperation in her voice. A bigger part hardened. "Where was Dad?" I asked. "When Alan confronted you 8 years later?" Mom looked away. "He wasn't home." "Convenient." Her eyes snapped back to mine. "You think your father had secrets?" she said softly. "He did. But not the way you think." My pulse stuttered. "What does that mean?" She hesitated. Pain flickered across her face like a memory she wished she could burn. "I wasn't the only one who stepped outside the marriage," she whispered. My breath froze. "Mom, what are you saying?" "I'm saying there's a reason your father offered to raise you without question. A reason he accepted you instantly. A reason he needed you more than you ever realized." I swallowed. "Tell me." She took a breath that sounded like breaking glass. "There was another woman, before you were born, and your father always feared. You weren't the first child he might have lost." My heart nearly stopped. "What?" I whispered. Mom reached into the tin again and pulled out a folded slip of paper. A birth certificate. Not mine. A girl's. Born 6 years before me. To my father. And someone who wasn't my mother. "But he never found her," Mom said. "And he never got over it." The room seemed to tilt sideways. My father had a daughter before me. Mom wasn't sure I was hers. Alan wasn't sure I was his. And a woman named Catherine Moore vanished from the hospital the day after giving birth, taking her baby with her. Or not. My mind buzzed, overloaded. And then, my phone buzzed on the couch beside me. A text. Unknown number. I picked it up. One message. "We need to talk about your DNA results. Now." I stared, breath frozen. Another buzz. "I think you might be my brother. To be continued." I stared at the text on my phone so long the words began to blur. "I think you might be my brother." My thumb hovered over the screen, my pulse pounding so hard I felt it in my teeth. I showed it to Mom. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. "No, no, not now and not like this." Who is this? I demanded. Do you recognize the number? She shook her head, trembling. But the fear in her expression told me something else. She didn't recognize the number, but she recognized the situation. Mom, I said, voice shaking. This isn't random. Someone knows something. Someone thinks I'm their brother. She pressed her hands to her mouth as if trying to physically keep another secret from escaping. Her shoulders curled inward. For a second, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Sit down, she whispered. I'm not sitting, I said. Not until you tell me what you're hiding now. Her hands dropped to her sides. There's something I never showed you, she said quietly. I exhaled in frustration and disbelief. Of course there is. No, she said with a sudden sharpness. This is different. And before I could ask what she meant, she stood up and walked toward the hallway, toward her bedroom. The room she'd shared with Dad until the day he died. The room that had probably held more lies than love. She reached the dresser, opened the top drawer, and slid her hand beneath the stacks of folded sweaters. I stepped closer, heart in my throat. She pulled out a small wooden jewelry box. Dark mahogany. Old. I'd seen her open it maybe twice in my entire life. It was the box she never let anyone touch. She placed it on the bed. Mom, I said. What is this? Her hands shook as she lifted the lid. Inside were only two items. A small folded letter and a Polaroid photo. The moment I saw the photo, my stomach dropped. It was a picture of a baby. Not me. Not the newborn photo Mom kept in the living room. This one was different. The blanket, the lighting, the size of the infant. It wasn't me. I knew it instantly. Whose child is this? I whispered. Mom didn't answer. She looked like she might collapse. Her fingers traced the edge of the Polaroid like she'd done it 1,000 times in secret. Then she handed it to me. The back of the photo had a date written in blue ink.
11-14-78-2:19 a.m.
1 hour after the birth time on the other bracelet. 1 day before I was born. My breath stuttered. This is Catherine's baby? I asked. Tears streamed down Mom's face. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know whose baby it is. You're lying. She shook her head violently. I swear. I never figured it out. That's why I kept it. Why I hid it. Why I prayed it would never come to this. The room tilted slightly. I felt like I was sinking. Why do you even have this? I demanded. She wiped her eyes. Because this photo was inside the envelope. My chest tightened sharply. The one from Alan? She nodded. Then what does the letter say? I asked. Her eyes flicked to the folded papers in the box. Please don't make me open it, she whispered. You think I'm going to just ignore it? She closed her eyes.
No.
I think opening it will destroy you. I grabbed the letter. Mom gasped, reaching out as if to stop me. But she didn't. Not really. She knew she couldn't. I unfolded it slowly. The paper crackled. Alan's handwriting slanted, rushed, uneven, like he'd written it in fear or desperation. Emma, if you kept the photograph, then you know why I'm writing. The hospital made a mistake. Terrible one. I can't prove it, but I'm certain the baby they handed you wasn't the same child I saw earlier in the night. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Catherine does too. My blood froze. I read on. She's convinced they switched them after the power outage. She said her baby didn't look the same when they brought him back to her. She begged the staff to check the tags again. They dismissed her. They told her she was confused. They told her the storm had her hysterical. But Emma, she was right to worry. I felt the room sway. My vision tightened at the edges. Mom reached for my arm, steadying me. I kept reading. Your child, our child, might not be the one you took home. And I don't know what to do. If this letter finds you, it means I couldn't stay. I couldn't fight your husband anymore. He made it clear I wasn't welcome. But if the boy you're raising isn't mine, then he isn't yours either. And we may never know what happened in that hospital. The next line made my stomach twist into a knot so tight I couldn't breathe. Catherine is gone. She left without her child. I dropped the letter. Mom didn't move to pick it up. It lay on the carpet like a confession dripping with decades of guilt. Mom, I said, voice hollow. What does that mean? If she left without her baby. She left with something, Mom whispered. She ran out carrying a blanket. But she wasn't holding anything inside it. My skin crawled. You saw this?
No.
A nurse told me. Why didn't you say anything? She shook her head, crying openly now. Because I didn't believe her. Because I didn't want to think the unthinkable. Because your father told me I was imagining everything. Because the hospital said nothing was wrong. Because the world kept turning and I forced myself to trust it. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Another message. Please don't ignore me. I think you're the baby from St. Mary's. We've been looking for you. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. I stared at the screen. Then at my mother. Then at the Polaroid again, the baby who might not be me. Mom, I whispered. Who is this person texting me? Her voice trembled. I don't know. The phone buzzed again. A third message. My mother died last year. She left a box of things from the hospital. One item had your name. My blood ran ice cold. Mom pressed a hand to her mouth. And then, another message. This time with a photo. I tapped it. The image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel. When it finished, I felt my entire body go numb. It was a picture of a woman. Older. Gray hair. Soft eyes. Standing in front of an old wooden farmhouse. Holding the same Polaroid I'd just seen in Mom's jewelry box. The caption beneath it. This is Catherine Moore. She thought they stole her baby. That baby might be you. To be continued. The picture on my phone wouldn't stop staring at me. Catherine Moore. Holding the same Polaroid that Mom had kept hidden for decades. Her eyes, soft, tired, but burning with the kind of grief only a mother who has lost something can carry. Mom whispered, "Oh God." Like a confession, like a prayer, like a curse. Mom, I said, voice tight. You told me she vanished. You said she left the hospital and no one ever saw her again. That's what they told me, she insisted. That's what I believed. But she didn't disappear. I held the phone up. She never stopped looking. Mom's shoulders slumped, defeated. I didn't know. Maybe she didn't, but she should have. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising. To talk to Dad. She blinked, confused. Sweetheart, he's gone. I know. My voice cracked. But his brother isn't. Uncle Mark. Dad's older brother. His confidant. His shadow. The man who always knew more than he said and said less than he should. If Dad had secrets, Mark had the keys to them. I'm coming with you, Mom said, reaching for her coat.
No, isnapat.
No more lies. No more half-truths. I need answers from someone who doesn't fall apart every time I ask a question. Her face crumpled. But I meant it. I walked out before she could say anything else. It was 9:47 a.m. when I pulled into my uncle's driveway. His house felt smaller than I remembered. The white paint chipping. The porch sagging slightly at the edge like it had grown tired of holding him up all these years. I rang the doorbell twice. No answer. I knocked. Nothing. I was about to leave when the curtain shifted. One sliver. 1 second. One eye watching me. The door cracked open. What's wrong? He asked, voice rough, smoker's rasp. I held up the phone with the DNA report glowing on the screen. We need to talk, I said. His eyes narrowed, not in confusion, but in recognition. He already knew what this was. Come in, he muttered. The house smelled like stale coffee and old wood. A baseball game murmured on the TV even though he wasn't watching it. I stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. He sat down slowly, leaning back like a man preparing for impact. Tell you what? That Dad wasn't my father. His jaw clenched. A slow, grinding movement. Your dad was your father. Not biologically. Doesn't matter. It matters to me. He looked away. I stepped closer. Did you know about Alan? His silence confirmed it. Did you know about what happened at the hospital? I pressed. His eyes flicked back to mine. And for the first time, I saw something new in him. Fear. Yes, he whispered. A cold wave passed over me. Uncle Mark, I said carefully. Tell me what you know. He stood, walked to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, took a long drink, then another, like he needed courage in liquid form. When he came back, he didn't sit. He leaned against the wall, bracing himself. You weren't supposed to know any of this, he muttered. Your dad wanted to take the truth to his grave. Well, I said, voice hard. He didn't make it. Mark inhaled deeply. Your dad. He wasn't perfect. I know. No, you don't. I crossed my arms tighter. Then explain it. He rubbed his temples. Your father loved you. More than anything. More than himself. But he didn't trust himself. What does that even mean? Mark hesitated. He thought you might not be his. Even before you were born. My chest tightened. He suspected the truth, Mark continued. Your mother tried to hide her fear, but he saw everything. He knew about the storm, the power outage, the mix-up rumor. He knew the baby they handed her looked different. My skin prickled. I didn't breathe. He confronted the hospital, Mark said. They dismissed him, told him he was mistaken, told him new fathers get overwhelmed. I shook my head slowly. So he gave up? No, Mark said quietly. He didn't. The room fell still. What did he do? I asked. Mark took a long, shaky breath. He went back. Back where? To the hospital. My pulse raced. He demanded to see the nursery logs, Mark said. He broke into the records room at one point. He nearly got arrested. I stared at him, stunned. My father. The man who never raised his voice. The man who apologized when he was the one wronged. Breaking into a hospital? What did he find? I whispered. Mark looked at me with an expression that made my stomach bottom out. 2 babies weren't accounted for during the blackout. My breath hitched. 1 missing for 30 minutes, he said. Another missing for nearly an hour. Which one was I asked. Mark swallowed. We don't know. I pressed my hand to my forehead. Dizzy. But your father, Mark continued, voice softening. When he held you for the first time, he didn't care. He decided you were his, no matter what. And he swore, absolutely swore, that no one would ever tear you away from him. A tear slipped from my eye before I could stop it. So that's why he never told me, I whispered. Mark nodded. He thought the truth would break you. I let out a shaky breath. It did. Mark exhaled, defeated. That's why he hated Alan, he said. Not because of the affair, but because he thought Alan might come back for you. Try to claim you. Which is exactly what he did, I said. 8 years later. Mark nodded again, slowly. He came to me first, Mark said. Not your father. Me. He asked if it was possible the babies were switched. If you might not be his or your dad's. If the hospital made a mistake. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? I whispered. The truth, Mark said. I told him we didn't know, and that he should walk away. For everyone's sake. My voice shook. And he did. For a while. I stepped closer. Well, he didn't stay gone, I said. He left a letter. He knew something was wrong. He did, Mark admitted. But your father begged him to leave it alone. Begged him. Your dad couldn't survive losing another child. The air felt thin. What do you mean another child? Mark's eyes softened. Your father had a daughter years before you, he said. A little girl. He only got to hold her once. The mother disappeared with her. He never found her. He never recovered. I froze. And when you were born, Mark continued. He thought fate was coming for him again. I felt my heart break. He thought he'd lose you too. My vision blurred. That's when my phone buzzed again. We both looked at it. A new message. A photo. A photo of a man. Not young. Not old. Standing on a porch. Holding a DNA test. The caption. My test matches yours by 49%. Male sibling. We need to talk. Uncle Mark whispered. Oh my God! Another message immediately followed. My name is David Moore. Catherine was my mother. And she always told me she had 2 sons. For a full 10 seconds I couldn't move. The message from the unknown number. David Moore. 49% DNA match. Male sibling. Hung in the air like smoke. Suffocating and impossible to ignore. Uncle Mark stared at the screen over my shoulder, eyes wide. His breath held so tightly it seemed like releasing it would shatter the room. My hands shook as I scrolled again. Another message. I think you're the baby my mother lost. She never stopped looking for you. A shiver crawled down my spine. Jesus, Mark whispered. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because something inside me, something deep, fragile, buried, was reacting in a way I didn't understand. It was like recognition without memory. Like déjà vu for a life I'd never lived. A brother. A brother? My voice came out hoarse. He said 2 sons. Mark sank into the armchair as if gravity had doubled. She did have 2 sons, he muttered. Or she believed she did. I looked at him sharply. What do you mean she believed she did? He rubbed his face with both hands. She told the nurses she had twins. My breath caught. Twins? He nodded slowly. But the staff said she didn't. Said she was confused. Exhausted. Traumatized. Was she? Mark looked at me with a kind of sorrow I'd never seen on his face. After the blackout that night, he said, every mother in that ward thought they were missing a baby. Every single one. That's how bad the chaos was. A chill rolled through my body. So what are you saying? He exhaled shakily. I'm saying it's possible Catherine wasn't imagining it. And if she thought she had 2 sons. He trailed off, eyes meeting mine. Then the second would have been born around the time your mother gave birth. My pulse raced. My hands went numb. David messaged again. I'm not trying to scare you, but we need to meet. Face to face. My throat tightened. Mark reached for my arm. Don't go rushing into anything. But something inside me was already shifting. I typed. Where are you? 3 dots appeared instantly, the typing indicator. Then the reply. Local. I'm 20 minutes away. I blinked. What? Mark shot up from the chair. He's here. Another message came through. I've known about you for 4 days. I came as soon as I confirmed the match. I swallowed. Uncle Mark. My voice shook. I need to meet him. Absolutely not, he snapped. This man is a stranger. He's not a stranger, I said, staring at the test result. He's my brother. Mark cursed under his breath and paced the room. You have no proof. Could be manipulation. A scam. Someone trying to extort you. You have no idea who this man is. I held up the DNA match. I know enough. That's not enough, he barked. His tone, sharp, panicked, hit me harder than anything he'd said before. Why are you so scared? I demanded. He stopped pacing. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes that wasn't about me. It was about my father. What aren't you telling me, Mark? He swallowed hard. There's something your father told me before he died, he whispered. Something he made me swear not to say unless I absolutely had to. You have to, I said. Now. He hesitated so long I thought he might refuse. Then he spoke. He didn't think you were Alan's. I frowned. I know that. No, Mark said, voice low. He didn't think you were Emma's either. My breath disappeared. The room tilted. What did you just say? He thought. Mark forced the words out. You belong to another woman, to someone who gave birth the same night, someone who disappeared. My skin crawled. You're saying Dad believed I was switched? Mark nodded slowly, painfully. Yes. I stared at him, horrified. Why didn't he ever tell me? Mark looked down. Because he didn't want to lose you, and because he couldn't prove it. All he knew was that the baby he saw in the nursery before the power outage didn't look the same afterward. The floor seemed to fall away beneath me. My phone buzzed again. I held the screen with trembling fingers. I can meet you at the park near Cedar Hill. There's something important you need to see. Mark grabbed my wrist. Think, he warned. He could be anyone. He's not, I whispered. How do you know that? I didn't. Not logically, not rationally, but something inside me, something instinctive, was pulling me toward the truth faster than fear could hold me back. I need to go, I said. Mark shook his head. If you go, I'm coming with you. I need to do this alone. The hell you do, he snapped. You go alone. You don't know what you're walking into. My phone buzzed again. A new message. A photo. I tapped it. My breath caught in my throat. The man in the picture, David, was standing next to a woman who looked shockingly familiar. Dark hair, soft eyes, a tiny scar above her eyebrow. I'd seen that face somewhere. My mother's dresser, her old photos. My mother. No, not my mother. A younger Catherine. And in the photo, David, maybe 18, and another kid. A boy, about 10. The boy looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same jaw, same hairline. And the caption beneath the photo. She always said she lost one and found the wrong one. My chest constricted. Mark whispered, Jesus Christ. Another message arrived. I think she meant you. I stared at the screen, breath gone, world spinning. The final text came through seconds later. If I'm right, you're the son she never got back. I left Uncle Mark's house without another word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I didn't even breathe properly. I just walked out into the cold morning air with David's messages buzzing through my veins like electricity I couldn't contain. A brother. Polaroid. A baby who looked like me, 10 years younger, with Catherine's arm wrapped around him. She always said she lost one and found the wrong one. Those words replayed in my head like a cracked recording, each loop scraping against my sanity. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I managed to get the door open, sat down, and just stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Who the hell was I? My phone buzzed again. Not David. Mom. A single message. Come home. I need to tell you the truth before he does. I drove back to my parents' house on autopilot. I didn't see the road. I didn't hear the engine. I didn't feel the steering wheel in my hands. All I felt was the collapse happening inside me. By the time I parked in her driveway, Mom was already standing in the doorway. Arms wrapped around herself, eyes red and swollen, face pale and hollow like she'd aged 10 years in the last 2 hours. I walked in. She closed the door behind me with a soft click. And the house, the same house that raised me, felt like a crime scene. Sit, she whispered. I'm fine standing. She swallowed hard. Please. I didn't want to, but something in her voice, something terrified, forced me into the chair across from her. She sat on the sofa, clasping her hands together so tightly her knuckles turned white. I know you've been talking to someone, she said shakily. I saw the texts when you showed me your phone. I didn't answer. She looked down at her trembling hands. I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted him to find you. My heart skipped. Him who? I pressed. David. She flinched.
No.
Not David. Her voice cracked. I mean the other one. A beat of stillness. Then the ground gave way under me. There's another? I whispered. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. Yes.
Ist der her, speechless.
There were 2 babies unaccounted for during the blackout, she said. You saw the hospital tag. You saw the date. One of those babies was yours. But the other, she hesitated. The other wasn't. Explain, I demanded. She wiped her eyes with a shaking hand. Your father and I, we were told you were healthy, breathing, crying. But when they brought you to me, you were silent. Too silent. Swaddled differently. And your bracelet, your real bracelet, was gone. I felt sick. Mom, this makes no sense. It didn't make sense then either, she cried. I kept saying something was wrong. Your father told me I was imagining it. He told me to rest. He told me to trust the nurses. And did you? She shook her head violently.
No.
I didn't. I couldn't. My pulse hammered. So what did you do? She took a long, trembling breath. I went looking. The room fell silent. She stared past me, as though watching the memory unfold behind my shoulder. I walked into the nursery. The lights were still flickering. Alarms going off. Babies crying everywhere. And in the middle of it all, there he was. Who? I whispered. A baby boy, crying louder than all the others. Wrapped in a blanket with no tag.
No bracelet.
Nothing. My skin prickled. He looked exactly like you, she whispered. Same mouth, same eyes, same dark hair. And I felt something. I can't describe it. I just knew. I gripped the arms of my chair so hard my knuckles burned. Mom, I said slowly. What are you saying? She met my eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. I took him. My entire body froze. I picked him up, she whispered. And I held him. And for the first time since you were born, I felt calm. I thought he was you. I thought they'd made a mistake. I thought they'd mixed you up and given me the wrong child. My heartbeat roared in my ears. And then, she continued, voice barely audible. A nurse came in. She panicked when she saw me holding him. She took him away, told me he wasn't mine, that he belonged to another mother. I swallowed hard. What other mother? Her voice cracked. Catherine. Everything inside me went still. She screamed. Mom whispered. She yelled at the nurses that her baby wasn't the same, that his hair looked different, that his birthmark was missing. She begged them to recheck the tags. She grabbed my arm. She asked if I'd seen a blonde baby boy, because hers had blonde hair when he was born. I stared. What color was the baby you were holding? I asked. Her voice trembled. Dark. Very dark. My pulse stuttered. And you think that baby was me? I thought so, she said desperately. I thought I'd found you. I thought they'd mixed you up with Catherine's. But then the nurses took him away. They told me I was confused. Were you? She shook her head.
No.
I wasn't. Silence swallowed the room. Then she whispered the words that broke something in me I didn't know could break. I don't think the baby they took from my arms was Catherine's. I think he was yours. I exhaled sharply, like someone had punched the air out of me. And the baby you brought home? I choked out. She looked shattered. I believed he was mine. I believed he was yours. But deep down, something never added up. I stood abruptly. Are you telling me? I said, voice trembling with rage. That you think I might not even be the child you gave birth to? She sobbed. I don't know. I've lived 42 years not knowing. I paced the room, heart racing, lungs tight. And the other baby? The one you held? The one they took from you? She swallowed hard. They marked his file incorrectly, she whispered. I overheard a nurse say it. Baby Moore was written on 2 different charts. One was crossed out. One wasn't. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I felt like I might collapse. So what happened to the baby you think was me? I asked. Her lips trembled. What happened to the child you held for those few seconds? Her next words ripped through me like glass. I don't know.
I stared her, horrified.
He disappeared, she whispered. No one ever saw him again. What do you mean, disappeared? The hospital blamed the blackout. Said he was transferred to another room. Said he was with the staff. Said he was fine. Was he? She shook her head.
No.
He was never recorded again. Not once. Not anywhere. A cold wave ran through my entire body. My voice cracked. So you think the baby you held, the one who looked like me, she covered her mouth, sobbing, might not have lived. My heart split open. I turned away so I wouldn't scream. Behind me, Mom whispered, "There's more." I didn't turn. Couldn't. "There was another reason your father never told you the truth," she said shakily. "Another reason he accepted you so easily. Another reason he never questioned anything again." I finally looked at her. She was trembling. "What reason?" I demanded. She closed her eyes. "When that baby disappeared, the staff moved us to another room, to calm us down, to keep us quiet." "Okay, so?" She looked straight at me, and nothing could have prepared me for what she said next. "Because in that room, there was another woman." My pulse pounded. "And your father recognized her." I froze. "He knew her," Mom whispered. "He knew her before I ever did." My stomach dropped. "Who was she?" I whispered. Mom's voice broke. "She was the woman who disappeared with his daughter 6 years before you were born." Everything inside me shattered. The woman who took Dad's first child was in the same room, the same night, the same hospital, when I was born. And then, Mom whispered the final blow. And she wasn't alone. For a moment, the room didn't feel real. The walls swayed, the air thinned, and every part of me felt like it was bracing for an impact that had already happened. Mom's voice trembled. She wasn't alone. My throat tightened. Then who else was there? Mom looked down at her hands like the truth was written on her palms, and she'd spent decades trying to scrub it off. "When the nurses moved me into the second recovery room," she whispered, "I wasn't the only patient inside. There were 2 other beds, 2 other women. And one was the woman Dad knew, the mother of his missing daughter." "Yes." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "And the second?" I pressed. She hesitated. Her breath stuttered. I stepped closer. "Mom, who was the second woman?" She finally lifted her eyes, and the sorrow in them was heavy enough to bend the air. "The second woman," she said quietly, "was Catherine." Everything inside me went still. "Catherine Moore was in the same room as you," I said slowly. "The night I was born?" Mom nodded. "The hospital had moved all mothers out of the nursery hallway after the blackout. They needed to keep track of everyone. So they put us together, me, Catherine, and the woman your father recognized." My skin prickled. All 3 of them. 1 room, 1 night, 3 mothers with newborns, and 2 missing babies. "And your father?" I whispered. Mom wiped a tear before it fell. "He came into the room after the lights came back on. He rushed in like a storm, terrified. He thought something had happened to me. And then he saw her." She closed her eyes, reliving it. "He froze." "Who?" I demanded. "Who did he see?" Her name was Lydia. The name meant nothing to me, but Mom said it like it carried weight, like it could crush us both. "Your father whispered her name the moment he saw her," she said. And she whispered his, quiet, panicked, like they hadn't seen each other in years, but were afraid someone might overhear. My heart pounded. "So he knew her?" I asked. "Yes." "Knew her how?" Mom hesitated, and the silence between her words was louder than anything she'd said so far. "She was the mother of his first child," Mom whispered. "The woman who left with his daughter." Something inside me twisted violently. "So she was there, at the hospital, the night I was born?" I said slowly, trying to wrap my mind around it. "With her baby?" Mom shook her head.
No.
"She was alone." A cold chill slid down my spine. "Then why was she there?" I asked. Mom's eyes filled again. "She said she'd miscarried, that she'd lost the baby the night before, that she'd come in alone and left alone." I felt sick. "And Dad believed her?" Mom's voice dropped to a whisper.
No.
A beat of silence. "What did he believe?" I asked. She drew a shaky breath, then looked at me as if the truth itself weighed more than she could bear. "He believed," she whispered, "that she might have taken another child, The room tilted. I gripped the back of the chair to steady myself. You mean his missing daughter? From years ago.
No, Mom swallowed.
He meant one of the newborns from that night. My veins filled with ice. He thought Lydia might have taken a baby from the hospital? Mom nodded weakly. He saw her leave the nursery hallway before the blackout. He said she was holding a blanket, tightly, like something precious was inside. I shook my head, dizzy. But the nurses said she'd miscarried. And he didn't believe them, she said. My pulse hammered. So what did he do? Mom's voice was barely audible. He confronted her. I held my breath. She screamed at him, said he ruined her life, said he didn't deserve to know anything about her child, said he'd abandoned her. Mom paused, eyes distant, and then she slapped him. The sound of that imagined slap echoed in my head, sharp and final. And she ran out of the room. I covered my mouth, feeling nauseous. Your father chased after her, Mom continued. 5 minutes later, the power went out again. The second blackout. The one the hospital tried to downplay. The one that changed everything. And after that, my voice trembled. He came back to find me crying, she said, because they'd taken the baby I was holding. The unnamed baby. The dark-haired baby. The one she thought was me. And when he saw what was happening, Mom whispered, he lost it. Completely. My father. The calmest man I knew. Losing it. What did he do? He accused the nurses of letting a baby go missing. He accused them of giving us the wrong child. He said, her voice cracked. He said he saw Lydia leave with a blanket, that he didn't trust her, that she'd done it once before. My pulse raced. And the nurses? They told him he was being hysterical, she whispered, that nothing was wrong, that all babies were accounted for.
I stared her, horrified.
And were they? I asked. Mom shook her head.
No.
A cold weight sank into my stomach. How do you know? She choked on her answer. Because when I asked the nurse about baby Moore, she said he was already discharged. But Catherine was still there, I whispered. Yes. And the baby in the Polaroid? Mom nodded. The one in the photo was handed to her after the power outage. Not before. The truth hit me like a punch. Mom, I whispered. Are you telling me that Catherine left the hospital with the wrong baby? Mom buried her face in her hands. I don't know, she cried. I don't know. None of us knew. The hospital didn't know. The staff didn't know. Everyone was confused. A tear slipped down my cheek. And Lydia? I whispered. Mom slowly lowered her hands, revealing the terror in her eyes. She never came back, she said. Not that night. Not ever. My stomach twisted. So a woman who'd already stolen one child from Dad was at the hospital. The same night 2 babies went missing, and one mother left with the wrong baby, and Dad chased her right before the blackout? Mom nodded. Yes. My breath came in short, sharp bursts. I pressed my palms to my temples. So what did Dad believe? I asked finally. What did he think really happened that night? She swallowed hard. He thought she took a baby. Which baby? She closed her eyes. I don't know. But he did. I whispered. Didn't he? Mom hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes. My voice cracked. Which one? Mom's answer came out in a trembling breath. He thought she took you. The world stopped. That was the moment everything, every lie, every secret, every missing piece, locked into place. But before I could speak, before I could breathe, my phone buzzed. A new message from David. There's something you need to see. I found a letter from a woman named Lydia. I stared at the screen, heart racing. Another message followed, fast and frantic. She wrote it the night the power went out. She wrote that she took a baby, and she wrote your name. I stared at David's last message until the text blurred. She wrote that she took a baby, and she wrote your name. My lungs forgot how to work. I didn't blink, didn't move, didn't speak. Behind me, Mom whispered, "No. Oh God. No. Please tell me it isn't true." But she already knew. She'd known since the night everything fell apart in that hospital. I finally peeled my eyes from the screen and looked at her. "Why didn't you ever tell me about Lydia's letter?" Mom squeezed her trembling hands together. "Because I've never seen it. I didn't know it existed. Your father, he must have kept it, or destroyed it, or hid it somewhere." My voice was raw. "Why would he hide something that important?" She whispered, "Because he believed it." The words hit me like a fist. My father believed I had been stolen from another woman. I pressed my hand to my chest. I half expected my heart to feel different, foreign, borrowed. "What if it's not your name?" Mom said desperately. "Maybe David misread it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a different baby." My phone buzzed again. I didn't look at her. I opened the message. A photo loaded. The letter. Old paper, yellow edges, shaky pen strokes. The handwriting rushed and uneven, like it had been written in panic or guilt or both. The top corner showed the hospital letterhead, St. Mary's Women's Center. The date, November 15th, 1978.
4:41 a.m.
Almost the exact time I was supposedly born. I zoomed in. My breath caught as the words came into focus. "I can't keep him. They'll know. He doesn't belong to me. I never should have taken him. His mother is 2 doors down. She's crying. His father. God help him, he saw me." My knees buckled. I sank onto the couch with a thud. Mom whispered my name softly, but I couldn't hear her anymore. The room felt underwater. I kept reading. "I thought he was mine. I thought I could fix everything I ruined. But he isn't. He isn't mine." My vision tunneled. I scrolled down. More rushed, jagged handwriting. "Her baby is gone. Mine is gone. His real mother didn't know. No one knew at first. But when the power went out, I panicked. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I whispered, "Oh my God!" Mom's breathing hitched violently. I scrolled farther. The ink smudged, the lines crooked. I heard the nurses say the name. "Emma." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. She looked like she'd been punched. Another line. "Her baby boy wasn't where he was supposed to be." I grabbed the only baby who looked like the one I lost. I shouldn't have done it. But I didn't know what else to do. A chill swept through me. I forced my eyes to the bottom of the letter. The last 3 lines were scrawled so hard the paper had cracked. "I'm leaving him where he belongs, with his real parents. Lydia." Beneath the signature, a name. Not mine. Not exactly. Not fully. But close enough to punch the air out of my lungs.
Baby, Ellie.
I froze. My name is Elias. But no one in my entire life ever used the shortened version. It wasn't a coincidence. Couldn't be. Mom gasped. She grabbed the letter with shaking hands, eyes darting across the lines. "No," she whispered, voice cracking. This can't be. This isn't." But it was. I could see it in her face. She knew. She just didn't want it to be true. I swallowed hard. "Mom, whose baby was I?" She collapsed into the nearest chair. "I don't know," she cried. "I don't know. I only know what the hospital told me, what your father told me, what I convinced myself to believe." My phone buzzed again. A text from David. "There's more." My mother wrote a second page. It wasn't inside the envelope. She hid it behind a photo frame. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. Another message arrived. This time, a photo. A second sheet of paper. Written with the same frantic, uneven handwriting. I zoomed in. Mom leaned over my shoulder, breath shaking. The first sentence made my blood run cold. "They switched 2 babies tonight." I felt the room spin sideways. I scrolled. The first one they already know. The nurses caught it. But the second one was mine. Mom clamped her hand over my arm so tightly it hurt. I kept reading. Someone took him. I don't know who. I don't know why. But he's gone. I felt my stomach twist violently. Gone. Her child. Gone. And then, the line that shattered everything. I took the wrong baby. I know that now. I put him back. But I never found my son. A cold wave swept through me. I blinked, and the next words came into focus. There is a baby with no mother tonight, and a mother with no baby. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. I whispered, "Mom!" She squeezed her eyes shut, as though not seeing the words might undo them. I forced myself to continue. If they find out what I've done, they'll take the other baby too. So I'm leaving. I have to. I can't face them. I can't face him. Her handwriting dissolved into a messy scrawl. Then, the last line, the one that made my entire body go numb. He isn't named yet, but I heard them say what they're calling him. Elias. I pray he ends up where he belongs. Silence swallowed the room whole. Couldn't breathe. My mother's hand slid off my arm and fell limp to her lap. "Oh God!" she whispered. "Oh God!" My throat tightened. "So I wasn't stolen from anyone," I said quietly. Mom looked at me with tears streaming down her cheeks. I wasn't misplaced. I wasn't switched once. I wasn't swapped by accident. I swallowed the truth like poison. I was the baby Lydia left behind. Mom shook her head, sobbing. "But I loved you." "I know," I whispered. "And I held you." "I know." "And you were mine." "I know." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't blame her. But nothing could stop the truth from landing. "Mom," I said softly, painfully, "I wasn't your baby." She broke completely. Her whole body shuddered with a sound I'd never heard from her. A sound no child should ever hear from their mother, even if she wasn't really theirs. I felt my chest crack open as she cried. But before I could speak, before I could comfort her or collapse myself, my phone buzzed again. A message from David. "I know where the hospital records are. The originals. Not the ones they gave the families." I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Another message. "They show exactly which baby went missing, and which baby was found." I froze. My pulse stopped. Restarted. Stopped again. The final message arrived like a blade. "And they show who raised the wrong one." I don't remember the drive to David's house. I don't remember leaving Mom's living room, or getting into my car, or the world moving under my tires. I remember one thing, the sound of her crying as I walked out, a sound that followed me all the way to the old farmhouse at the edge of town. The same house from the photo, the one where Catherine had stood, holding a Polaroid of a baby boy who might have been me. It was 4:58 p.m., gray clouds hanging low, a cold wind dragging leaves across the gravel driveway. David opened the door before I could knock. For a moment, we just stared at each other. He looked older than the picture he sent. Mid-40s, broad shoulders, dark hair starting to gray, eyes tired, cautious, but familiar.
Uncomfortably familiar.
"Elias?" he asked softly. My throat tightened. "Yeah." He nodded.
Come in.
Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet, like grief lived in the walls. Photos lined the mantel of Catherine, of David, of the boy from the old picture. And right in the center, a framed birth certificate. Not mine, his brother's. I walked toward it slowly. "His name was Aaron," David said behind me. "My older brother. He died when he was 10.
A drowning accident.
My chest tightened.
I'm sorry.
He nodded, eyes watering. He always felt different. Mom said he wasn't like me. Not like her either. Something about him never matched. I froze. "What are you saying?" He motioned toward the kitchen table. Papers were laid out. Old, yellowed, fragile. Hospital seals. Faded signatures. Records I'd never seen. "These are the originals," he said quietly. "Not the ones the parents got. Not the ones given to the hospital board. The ones they hid." My hands trembled as I reached for the top sheet. The nursery log. November 14th, 78 to November 15th, 78. One column labeled, removed for feeding. One column labeled, returned. Two lines didn't match. Baby boy more, removed 1:02 a.m., returned 3:11 a.m. Baby boy unknown, removed 3:14 a.m., returned blank, completely blank. The breath punched out of me. This, David said quietly, is the baby my mother always swore wasn't hers. The one she begged the nurses to recheck. I pressed my hand to the table to keep from collapsing. Where did he go? I whispered. David slid another sheet toward me. A chart. A name. Not mine. Not theirs. Just an ID tag.
E 41 ha un assigned infant, male.
Status. Transferred to room 207. Time. 4:32 a.m. My heart pounded. Room 207. The room Mom had been moved to, with Catherine and Lydia. A cold sweat broke across my neck. The baby, I whispered. The dark-haired one, the one my mother held. That was you, David said quietly. I shook my head. But she said they took him away. They said he wasn't hers. And he wasn't, David said. But they didn't take him far. I looked at him sharply. What do you mean? He took a deep breath. Turn the page. I did. And the world broke open. A second chart. Same date. Same night. Same chaos. But this one had a name. Baby boy Moore mother. Catherine Moore. Weight. 7 pounds. 4 ounces. Hair, blonde. Birthmark. Left hip. Birth time. 1:03 a.m. I closed my eyes. I forced myself to read the next line. Updated record post-blackout. Baby boy Moore hair. Dark. Birthmark. None. Weight. 7 pounds. 8 ounces. My breath hitched. They changed the record. I whispered. David nodded. The staff was overwhelmed. Power was out. Tags fell off. Babies were moved. They had to reconstruct everything from memory. I stared at him. And they got it wrong. He nodded. That baby, my brother, the one in the second photo. He pointed to the older picture of the 10-year-old boy. That wasn't mine. He wasn't our blood. He wasn't the baby Catherine gave birth to. The truth slammed into me. My legs gave out. I sank into the chair. My voice was barely audible. So I'm your mother's child. David nodded slowly. Yes. And you? I whispered. He swallowed. I'm the one she actually gave birth to. Everything inside me twisted. So you were with the right mother. Yes. And You were stolen, he said gently. Not by her. Not by us. By the night. By the chaos. By the blackout. And Lydia? I choked. He exhaled. She grabbed you because she thought you were hers. When she realized you weren't, she put you down. In the wrong room. On the wrong bed. At the wrong moment. My head spun. And my mom picked me up. David nodded. She thought she was saving you. Finding you. Claiming you. I pressed my palms to my eyes. And your mother, Catherine, took home the wrong baby. Yes. And he, Aaron, died never knowing. Yes. A sob broke out of me before I could stop it. It wasn't a clean sob. Not a sharp one. Not cinematic. It was messy. Ugly. Raw. David sat across from me, eyes full of grief that wasn't mine but somehow belonged to me anyway. When my breathing finally calmed, he reached into his pocket and slid something across the table toward me. A photo. The same dark-haired baby from the Polaroid. Mom kept that picture her whole life, he said. She always said she had 2 sons. One she lost. One she found. She didn't know which was which. I stared at the baby. Me. It was me. The eyes. The mouth. The same tiny crease in the chin I'd carried all my life. And then David whispered, "She died thinking you'd never know her." A tear slid down my cheek and fell onto the photo. I reached for it, hands trembling. Then David placed a small box beside it. Wooden. Old. Scratched. I found this in her nightstand after she passed, he said gently. She wrote your name on it. My breath caught. My name, Elias, even though she never got to call me that. I opened the box. Inside, tiny blue knit hat, a hospital anklet with a faded letter E, a note that read, "To my son, whoever he became, wherever he went." My vision blurred, covered my mouth with my hand. David placed a hand on my shoulder. Not forceful, not possessive, not claiming, just connection. "You have two families," he said softly, "and you were wanted by both." My voice shook. "I don't know where I belong." He nodded. "I didn't either. For years." We sat in silence. Two men bound by accident, tragedy, and a truth buried for decades. After a long moment, he spoke again. "There's one more thing," he said. "It's the part one think you deserve to know most." I looked up. David slid one last paper across the table. Another hospital record. Infant transfer report, November 15th, 78.
Baby, il 41 ha un assigned male.
Status: returned to parent care. Notes: mother identified child immediately. Father present and confirmed match. Released to Emma and spouse. My breath caught. My pulse stopped. Mom was right. Dad was right. They did know me. They did choose me. They saw me. Even in the chaos. They knew. David touched the page gently. "You ended up exactly where you belonged," he said. "My mother believed it. Your father believed it. And I believe it too." I stared at him, tears rolling silently. "Elias," he said quietly, "you weren't the baby she stole. You were the baby she returned." My chest cracked open. He continued softly, "And Emma, she wasn't the mother who lost you. She was the one who found you." The final line hit me like a heartbeat restarting. "You were never the wrong child." 18 months later, I stood in front of a headstone beneath an old maple tree, the leaves rustling softly above me. Catherine Moore, 1954 to 2023, a mother twice over. David stood beside me. Mom stood behind me, hand resting lightly on my back. We weren't perfect. We weren't healed. But we were no longer broken strangers orbiting a lie. I placed the tiny blue hat on her grave. "I'm here," I whispered. "You didn't lose me after all." Mom squeezed my shoulder gently, and for the first time since the world shattered, I felt whole enough to breathe. Not fully healed, but whole. I learned something the night the truth finally surfaced. Blood doesn't make you a family, but love does, and love finds its way home. I turned to leave, but before I did, I whispered one final line into the wind. "Thank you for letting me be found. Beat. Even if it took 42 years."